Yeah, so anyway, episode 2, this is the one we've all been waiting for. It's in the tagline, it's in the headline already, so everyone knows what we're talking about. And people are going, you're a bunch of crackpots, I'm not watching this.
Okay.
See you later.
See ya.
So yes, the whole UFO situation, or UAPs as they are now called.
Still like UFOs.
UFO is better, but the reason why they changed it to UAP, there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason was to try to move away from the UFO stigma. You know, as soon as you mention the word UFO, people just sort of conjure up thoughts of like just wacky, you know, drunk farming in the middle of nowhere.
Theorists.
Exactly, yeah. And so they're trying to move away from that because they're trying to get people to take this subject more seriously. Because if you've been looking at the reports since 2017, which is when I first got onto this, because before that I was like, I just took it like everyone else. I just thought, it's nothing to it. It's probably just some US secret military sort of thing. But then when you look into it more and more, you go, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. There's no way that a country's got this kind of technical superiority, not even the US government. Yeah, so I guess we'll start from the beginning. It's essentially where I started getting into this topic. So 2017, and maybe even you don't even know the whole story as well, because I know I've been feeding you bits and pieces here and there as well. But for those who don't know, 2017 was when it all started. Basically, there were 3 videos that were leaked. And they were technically not officially leaked, unofficially leaked. They were kind of officially leaked, if that makes sense. They were Pentagon-approved videos. 3 incidences from 2004, and I believe the other ones were from like later on, like 2015 and 2000 something, whatever it was. And what they were called, the Tic Tac video, the Go Fast video, and the Gimbal. They were the nicknames given to them.
Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating. Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger. There's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
And these are all filmed off the coast of California and off the coast of, on the east coast of the US, which is like, I think it was off the coast of Florida or something like that. That sort of a region. Mm-hmm. And so the story is that they filmed this stuff and they couldn't believe what was going on. And it wasn't just the video aspect; it was all the radar evidence, the infrared stuff, all the data that they had collected together, and then the eyewitness accounts from the actual military pilots that talked about this stuff, who actually encountered these things. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of a military pilot talking about this, just full on, just talking about their experience with this. So the 2004 one was the biggest one, the Tic Tac, and still to this day is considered to be the most crucially important one out of the whole thing. And the New York Times ran the story in 2017, broke the story out, even though it happened in 2004. This commander, he's basically the top commander-in-chief of the Black Hawks military, basically the top of the top in the U.S. military arsenal. This guy ran the best of the best. So this guy is not some crackpot drunk farmer in the middle of nowhere who just saw a couple of lights in the sky and thought, you know, it's something. This guy is serious. And if you watch him talk about this stuff in some of the interviews, it's just straight down the line. Just no shit like bagging with him at all. It's just like him straight down the line. Just, it is what it is. And he just talks about it like, yeah, just like a matter of fact. Like, this is what happened. You do with what you do with it, you know. And it's just that since then, it's just been catapulting into this whole thing where now they're seeing these things every single day, more and more of them flying around. Now, the thing that really changed my mind is when I started to look at the evidence of what these things were doing, because I thought they were just moving in the same way that a normal aircraft moves around. So that's why I never really bought into it. I just thought, what's so special about these things flying around? You don't know what it looks like, or you don't know what it is. Doesn't mean it is something from, you know, not this planet. But when you look at some of the details, like the speeds that they're going, the maneuvers that they're doing, they call it the 5 observables. And basically, they can travel through air and water and in space with no impunity, like there's no difference. It just travels through everything without any sort of nothing blocking them at all. And then there's the other thing, like the speeds that they're going. They're going at like Mach 300. Now we've only got things that are capable of going at Mach 16, 17, 18, or whatever it is, maybe a bit more than that, in the water and then through the air, and it was just insane
As if there's
stuff.
no air, there's no water.
Yeah, like no difference at all. It just and they've got all these things. You could easily just look at one particular video, one particular image, one particular piece of evidence and go and dismiss it easily.
Yeah.
But if you put the whole thing together collectively, there is a much bigger thing going on, and they don't know what it is. The thing is that they are past the point of are these things real? They're past that point. That question is not even valid anymore. They know these things are real. Now they're trying to figure out what the hell they are. And it's none of the countries are owning up to it. Like, it's not China, it's not Russia, and it's not the US. If it's anyone else, then they have the most superior technology that we have ever seen. And it's a scary thought, because these things can basically take over the world, essentially.
Yeah. World domination, if you had it, you'd be able to easily do it.
And this is why they don't think Russia has it, because with the war in Ukraine, they would have showed it by now. It would have already come across, and they're getting just destroyed and getting hit and killed and stuff like that. They would have showed it by now. So it's clearly not that. And China, China tends to borrow and steal stuff from other places, other countries. They don't really sort of make their own things. That's how they kind of sort of evolve a little bit with their technology. They just sort of like, oh, I like that, and they're going to go and take it and make it their own. So not Chinese. The US, on the other hand, I don't believe it is from a US-made technology. However, there's word that they have it. That's the rumor. But I don't believe that they know how it works, and they're trying to figure out how it works and stuff. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. The point is, these things are real, and it's a little frustrating when you try to bring the subject up, and people just dismiss it because it's like they're attaching the whole previous UFO stories of like the past.
Yeah, or the guy that summoned them at like a will or something. I've seen videos of that a long time ago, but I thought that was a lot of.
Of course, yeah. There is like 80% of the stuff that's out there is horseshit.
Yeah,
100%.
Kind of ruins it for all the real stuff.
It does, and that's what's making it really hard. But then you look at people like there's this journalist in Australia named Ross Coulthard, who's been sort of spearheading a lot of this stuff as well in the media. Now, he's been on 60 Minutes, not been on 60 Minutes. He's part of the 60 Minutes and Channel 7 and things like that. He's a freelance journalist, and he's a very serious one as well. And I've seen him. I remember seeing him his stuff like when I was a kid on TV.
Yeah.
So if you saw a picture of him or whatever, you go, oh yeah, I've seen that guy on TV before. Anyway, he's been sort of jumping on this because he found out what was going on and goes, why isn't anyone reporting on this stuff? It's just sort of just been sort of swept under the rug and kind of relegated to just the typical UFO stuff that's always been. But we know that's not the case anymore. These things are 100% real. They're legitimate. They're showing stupid, like, just behaviors and maneuvers, and they're coming in all weird shapes. There's no wings, no propulsion systems, no heat signatures, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, what does that? We do not know how to design an aircraft without wings and an engine. Without those two things, they cannot fly.
It's just like they're obsolete.
Exactly. Well, essentially what it is that these things that are flying around, they basically render all of our technology obsolete straight away. They're trying to figure out who it is. And obviously that conjures up all kinds of thoughts. Who is it? What is it? Everyone just goes to the number one thing. Oh, it's a little green man. It's aliens. The number one speculation is actually it's not a little green man. The thing is that it's not human-made. Yeah. One wild theory that I've heard is that it's actually another subspecies on the planet that's always been here, and they're coming out of the water, the ocean, because a lot of the stuff that they've been finding, it's all been out in the middle of the ocean. Most of it, like 90% of it, has been out in the ocean. So
most of the ocean's unexplored.
Exactly. And if you're going to hide somewhere, where is the best place to hide on the planet? In the ocean. So there's speculation that these things are coming out of the water, and it seems to be another entity of some kind. Now, people will always obviously just go straight to the whole alien thing, but if they're already on the planet and they possibly might have been here longer than us, does that really make them alien?
No.
Not really, no. What it makes them is just another species on the planet.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about the number of new species that we discover every day. I mean, I think I'd read somewhere we discover new ones like 20 or 30 like every day or something like that. And granted, there are a lot of them. It's just little insects and, things like that, and very subtle differences between something that we've already discovered. But who's to say that we cannot find or one day just find or discover something much bigger, something more intelligent than us?
We wouldn't like that.
No, well, we would no longer be the number one.
We always
dog.
love being the top dog.
Exactly. We always deem ourselves to be the most intelligent on the planet. But if we were to find something that was more intelligent than us, that would change everything for us. And I think that's partly why some people are finding it hard to accept, because there's a potential here for something to be much bigger than us. And I think that scares people, because it's like we've been so used to being the top dog that all of a sudden something else is going to come along and take that away from us.
Be the top dog.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we are like, well, where does that put us in the whole scheme of the hierarchy, So.
And then the space age, you've got all these potential other top dogs that have been the top dogs of their planet, all flying around everywhere.
Yeah.
And
so the reason why they're speculating that theory of this new subspecies on the planet is because they've been finding little evidence of anything coming out from outer space, from other planets. Very little evidence. Everything seems to be coming from the planet. They've all been sort of seen in and out of the water and things like that. So the Tic Tac incident that happened in 2004 was a perfect example of that. They saw this thing come out of the water. Initially started out, they reckon, above 80,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and it went down to near ground or ocean level in less than a second. I think it was like 0.07 of a second. From 80,000 feet down, they've got radar evidence and eyewitness accounts of seeing this thing. Like, the evidence is all there. What does that? It's not a hot air balloon. It's not a drone. Nothing can do that at that kind of speed. So that people say, well, maybe it's just a radar, like a technical glitch or something like that. It was like, but they're seeing these things every single day. You're telling us that the most technologically advanced military has got glitchy radar
all the time,
every day. Like, I don't think so.
No.
So at some point, people have to accept the evidence that's been given to us.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what it is. They're real. We don't know what it is. Let's try and figure it out instead of just dismissing it. But I try and bring it up with people, and it's like, no, it's nothing. It's like, no, it is something. And then you're going to find out very soon that it's going to be much bigger than you actually think it is. So that's how I discovered this whole thing. Was that 2017 New York Times article that reported that they have been seeing these reports. They saw the videos being leaked, and then it was confirmed by these military pilots. It was later officially confirmed by the Pentagon in 2020. They took them 3 years to officially confirm it. I don't know why it was such a long delay, but it took them 3 years to officially confirm these things were real, and they're trying to figure it out. The other big thing about the story was, apparently, in a New York Times article in 2017, they discovered that there was a UFO program called ATIP that was trying to research all this stuff, and it's been happening for a long time now. And then I saw this interview on the Joe Rogan podcast with this guy named Bob Lazar. And so go look up. I'm not going to explain the entire story with Bob Lazar, but look him up and decide for yourself what you think of that story, because he was saying this stuff in the 80s. In the late 80s, he came out and he basically said he was a worker, a physicist who worked at this secret place at Area 51. At that time, no one had ever heard of Area 51, except for some of the people that live in the Las Vegas area. And because a lot of the places over there are like military based and stuff. And so some people obviously already knew about it, but I don't think they knew that it was called Area 51 though. It was like called other names. But he blew the whistle on that and said this was a place that I worked at, and he was working on basically this alien technology. It was all these like aircraft that he'd been working on, and he said there wasn't human. Like there was no way that we could have made this stuff. Look it up on the Joe Rogan podcast, and also look up the documentary that he did with this guy named Jeremy Corbell, who's this filmmaker. So look that up, and that'll kind of lead you in the right direction. It's an amazing story, though. And as the years have gone on, bits and pieces of information that he talked about in 1988, 1989 has come true since that time. So he's been validated so many times, and yet there are still people that still say,
it's garbage.
Yeah, but it's like, it's hard to dismiss his story. There's no evidence to say he's lying. Granted, there's very little evidence to say he's telling the truth either.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of those weird ones where you got to decide for yourself. But so it was the combination of that story and then the Pentagon New York Times article in 2017 that led me down the rabbit hole. And then the more you get into it, the more you read about it, the more you sort of look all these interviews and these ex-military guys, ex-CIA guys have been talking about it, you realize what the hell's going on here? Like, it blew my mind when I first was like going down the rabbit hole going, why isn't anyone talking about this? Like, it was the biggest story in the world, and like it's just been shoveled under the rug. Like, it's just, and that's where that movie that we talked about in episode 1 about that movie Don't Look Up. That's how I feel. And I watch that movie, and then I see what's going on with UFO. That's how I feel about the whole thing. Like, it's just frustrating that no one is paying any attention to it. It's, I don't know. What's your thoughts on this whole thing? How did you get into this? Like, have you always been into it, or were you sort of gradually?
I've always been interested into it. Like, I remember back in primary school, there was a few science fiction books about aliens and stuff like that. But it's all good fun and stuff. But and then like there was the YouTubes. I guess when I was a kid, I thought, this is cool. I didn't know what to expect as a child, so. Yeah. And then I've just been following it, and then I've been interested in aliens, movies, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in that stuff as well, but I never really took the serious side of the UFO subject seriously.
Yeah,
it was just too fantastical.
It's like, well, what if the possibility? And the more you ask that, you're like, well, I can't really rule something out, so
yeah.
But it's just weird.
It is. I think for a long time, though, there's been a lot of people that have been into the subject that just sort of believed it to be true. Like, they just believed it like a belief system kind of thing. But I'm sure those people still exist. But like now there's far too much evidence to show these things like they're legitimate. Like, these things are flying around. Like, they're saying the reports are coming in every day, and there's more and more of them. They're coming in droves, packs. Like the gimbal video that's in the 3 leaked videos in 2017. The gimbal one is the one where they see this thing flying around, and then it stops. It just stops in midair, and then it rotates in midair. And there's they couldn't find any heat signatures. There was no wings, no propulsion. There was nothing at all. And this thing just stopped. What you don't see in the video, like, because there's only a single one there, what you don't see in the video, which you can hear the pilots talking about, is that there was a dozen more of them outside the camera.
Yeah.
And they were in a V formation. And that was what was freaking them out. It wasn't the one single one rotating. It was the other ones that was freaking them going, what's all these things flying around for? Now, the first thing that people say when they hear about that is like drones. They think, oh, it's all drones. Drones don't act like this. They're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere. Where are the drones coming from? Because it has to be controlled by someone, and there is no one out there. There's literally, it's secret not secret airspace. It's the airspace that they use for like training and things like that. No one can just fly in there with their drones and go, I'm just going to just have a bit of fun with my drone, And they're out in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's no drones out there.
No.
So that's a weak argument. And to say that they're also balloons or just a plastic bag, but there's 12 of them in a V formation, in perfect formation. Balloons don't do that.
And the speeds.
And the speeds as well, yeah. Now, some of them really go really slow, and those ones aren't as impressive, but it's what they do. Like, sometimes they will like just go straight, and then they will just go in a 90-degree angle, and they will turn.
Yeah.
We don't have anything that does that.
Just do that.
Yeah, they need to
take
time.
A drone can.
A drone can, but not at the speeds that they're sort of doing it.
Yeah. But,
and the shape of these things as well. Like, these pilots are now saying that they're seeing these essentially square boxes. They reckon they're about 3 or 4 or 5 meters big in diameter, and they're square boxes, and they got a circular orb around them, and they're flying around. They reckon they've been almost hit multiple times by these things flying around in the air.
I'm surprised no one's hit them.
Well, that's it. And this is the reason why the US government in particular is looking at this more closely, because it's become a security threat. They're not looking at it as like, I wonder if it's aliens or it's some kind of superior technology, clearly, but they're looking at it more as a security issue, because they're flying in restricted airspace within the US government, sort of like, tightly controlled areas, and they're almost hitting the aircraft. Now, whether that's intentionally or not, they don't know, but that's something to be looked at. I mean, that's why they're looking at this seriously, because the pilots are freaking out. They're trying to do their training programs and stuff like that, and they are freaking out, seeing these things flying around everywhere, and they don't know what it is. It's not drones. It's the Ross Coulthard, that the media journalist that I told you about, he's already dismissed that, saying, no, these are not drones. We know how drones operate. These are not drones. If they are drones, they're not ours. There's also that, and also it seems there might be a possibility that they're looking at us, whatever these things are, they're looking at us, and they're concerned about our use of nuclear weaponry.
Yeah.
Essentially. And they're going, you guys are still monkeys down there. Be careful, because you're sort of playing around with, fire, essentially,
Yeah.
So, and that just conjures up all kinds of different, ideas and thoughts as, well, if they're watching us, then why are they watching us? And you just go down another rabbit hole, and you just keep going down so many different rabbit holes, and you just pick up new evidence, and
you never stops.
Oh, it never stops. No, there's something happening all the time. It's a subject that I've definitely gone down a lot of rabbit holes, and I've obviously watched a lot of interviews, and I follow a lot of people like Ross Coulthard's one. For anyone who wants recommendations to follow, there's a guy named Lou Elizondo. He was running the ATIP UFO program for a number of years until he left a couple of years ago, and became a sort of whistleblower, and sort of revealed some stuff about what was going on. And even though he's still got security clearances and stuff, he's got to be very careful about what he says. The things that he has been able to say is unbelievable. It's where a lot of this information that we know about is come from him, from this guy. So many people that have just come out, and it's all coming from the military as well. This is not just some weird sort of, people that are just like have no background or anything.
Yeah.
These are all like actual military, like government people and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know. It's once you go down that rabbit hole, then it's hard to ignore it. You know what I mean? And all you want to do is just talk about it. But the thing is, you can't find anyone to talk about it with, because everyone just doesn't want to. They don't want to know about it.
No, they want to talk about the butterfly, or what's the butterfly doing now?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the media in Australia, in particular, has just basically ignored it. Or if they do report on anything, they just make fun of it, and they play X-Files music in the background, and it's just, what are you doing? But I will give credit to Channel 7, because Channel 7 actually did a documentary that Ross Coulthard actually put together.
Yeah.
And you can watch that on YouTube, and there's 2 of them. The one that did 2020, 2021, and another one just recently. Look it up. 7 News Spotlight. Look it up. And if you still have not been convinced, then I don't know what else to say about the subject. But the evidence is damning. Like, it's all there. We need to pay attention, because these things are real.
Yeah.
We need to figure it out what it is. So, because
it's probably going to get, a lot more people, getting cameras out, and you might see like there's multiple people having a shot of the same thing from different angles, different parts of Australia, or
it just seems like everything is going towards something quite big. It almost seems like they're drip feeding bits of information and stuff like that, and it's like it seems like there's an end goal somewhere, like some people call it full disclosure or whatever. I don't think there'll ever be full disclosure, but I think we're going to be learning a lot more as time goes on what these things actually are. So, we can't dismiss that. There's a lot of bullshit out there as well.
There is, yeah.
But amongst all the bullshit, there is tangible, physical evidence that these things are legitimate.
Yeah, and a lot of eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, eyewitness accounts, and then, the data
Everyone
especially.
in a certain area saw the same thing. And
yeah. Well, one of the most famous incidences was in 1997. It was called the Phoenix Lights in the city of Phoenix in Arizona in the US. And basically, what happened was thousands and thousands of people saw these things flying around over the city. And there was these massive lights. And it was like, they reckon it was like the size of like 5 or 6 football fields, like just hovering over the entire city. And thousands of people saw it, all eyewitness accounts. There is some video, but again, it was at night time, so the video is just shit because like cameras just don't film stuff at night time very well. So.
Yeah, it was also one at a school, I believe.
Oh yeah, so there was 2 that I know of that happened at schools. I'm sure there was probably many more, but the 2 most famous ones at schools is the one in Zimbabwe in Africa, and there's a documentary called Ariel that's coming out. Oh, actually, it has already come out, called Ariel. And that talks about these kids who all saw these things land. They saw 2 entities walk out, and they basically were floating around and stuff like that. And then apparently they projected these things into their heads and said that there was an environmental crisis happening and all this stuff. Sounds wacky, I know, but these were children. These were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And the whole school of them, yeah, and the documentary follows them all the way into their adulthood, and they still, they like you're not going to get a bunch of kids line up this story and lie about it for 30 years. No. You're just not going to do that. So, and they all saw what they saw, and they all drew the same picture of the same thing that they all saw. Like the 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. You know, like they don't have that kind of an imagination to just make up a story and be the exact same story among 200 kids. You know,
it's like Chinese whispers. It's like unless they were all collaborating and someone was it's hugely unlikely.
Exactly. And then the other one was in 1966 in Melbourne, of all places, and there was a school there, including teachers who all saw the same thing as well. And in fact, the principal of the school, he said maybe a day later or a week later, he got a knock on the door, and it was US and Australian military knocked on the door and told him to keep his mouth shut about the whole incident.
Yeah. And
he only finally came out, just a couple of years ago, where he told his story about it. But the whole time he kept his mouth shut because his life was threatened and his job was in jeopardy, and said that would get him fired from the school and all this stuff, and. But yeah, 200 kids saw the same thing flying over there. They saw the thing land.
Yeah,
it was basically almost the exact same story as the South African one. The South African one, not the South Africa, the Zimbabwe. That story happened in 1994. The one in Melbourne was in 1966, and yet they shared and told the same story.
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense. Why would a 6-year-old in Melbourne in 1966 make up a story, and then some kid in 1994 in Zimbabwe would tell the exact same story? Like there was no internet really at that time, so they couldn't find out from that.
Not really.
Not a 6-year-old. 6-year-old's not going to look online and go, "Oh, how I'm going to make up a story? Oh, I saw this incident in 1966 from Melbourne.
Let's do some crop circles."
Exactly. Yeah, they're just not going to do that. So. Yeah. When you break it down like that, and then you start looking at all the pieces, it's like there's too much evidence for all of this stuff to be just complete hoaxes and fake stuff. There's legitimately something happening here, and it's been happening for a long time, at least since 1947. They reckon that Roswell incident, which I always dismissed, I always thought, it's just some military aircraft and they're just trying to hide it. It all seems to stem from that one incident. So... what the incident was, what that meant, whether something was captured, whether it was a start or something, I don't know. But there seems to be a correlation between when we started nuclear power, the whole thing with the atom bomb and all that kind of stuff in the 1940s. That's when everything seemed to start. So whether that's just coincidental, I don't know. Maybe it's coincidental. Who knows? I don't know.
But the one thing I find is quite interesting is all those ancient hieroglyphs and cave paintings, or those ancient with the alien looking crafts. And it looks so weird.
Yeah,
how does someone get an imagination, a space suit? You got a helicopter. You've got
it opens up more theories as to we could say that these things started happening in the 1940s, but speculation is that these things have been around.
Could have been happening for thousands of years.
Yeah, thousands of years, definitely. It would make sense if these things legitimately are another subspecies on this planet and they've been around longer than us. It would make sense that they were around during our history. We just didn't know what the hell they were at the time because we were so obviously still young in our historical evolution that we didn't know what. We didn't know what planes were because there was no planes. So when you see someone flying around, we just thought, what the hell is that? So you have no context as to what that could be. It wasn't until planes came around and we thought, that's something that's in the air, but we get used to it because we're so used to things in the air. But at that time, they never saw anything in the air because there was nothing flying around. So they probably either didn't see it or they thought it was some kind of god or whatever, So, who knows? But again, that opens up just a whole different...
It's so weird, but it's so interesting.
It is, yeah. But, it's just... I always look at it from a, very pragmatic sort of, practical sort of way. And if there's not enough evidence for me to sort of digest, then I just kind of, But I've looked at this and there is so much evidence there that it's hard to ignore it. It's too difficult.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that the reason why people are dismissing it is because they're not looking at the evidence. They haven't seen it. Until they see it, then they'll go, oh, right, now there is definitely something happening here.
Yeah. Like the one thing is that I was thinking of is all those caves and stuff that's a complete city or things being carved out of the stone out of a mountain.
Yeah.
Like these temples and everything. And we didn't have technology like perfect designs, everything's all perfect. There's no errors. Everything all the rooms being made by a master craftsman that didn't make a mistake. And that would require thousands or hundreds and hundreds of professionals. And such delicacy, in creating that, because you can imagine if you, like houses nowadays, you see a mistake or, but like these mountains are also beautiful, and it's just like how do you do it?
Yeah.
I want to go and visit these ones because I've seen a lot of cool photos online, but it's and I've had conversations, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories behind.
Where's the technology come from?
Exactly, yeah. There's a lot of theories behind that as well. Like there's this guy named Graham Hancock who puts out this theory that that civilization has actually gone through reset periods numerous times over the years, over thousands and thousands of years. So what we're going through now is our current, technological, whatever. But it seems like we've been through this before. Maybe not as advanced as what we have now, but it seems like we didn't just have this one period of this is where we started and it was like the enemy came to here. It seems like the civilization started, something happened, it had to reset itself, and then something they started to get, you know what I mean? And so they got to a certain stage where they were technologically advanced, and they were doing wild and crazy things, and then something happened, and then they sort of all got destroyed, and then they sort of had to reset and rebuild and sort of start again. And so it seems like, if you look at the bigger picture, it seems like there's this sort of every once in a while a reset period of and it could be just a case of natural disasters or whatever that was happening, meteorites hitting the planet, and we know this happens because the dinosaurs were wiped out from meteors. Who's to say that it didn't happen 50,000 years ago where something could have wiped out an entire civilization,
Yeah.
So we just don't know.
The Egyptians, the gods were alien beings.
Yeah, I mean, if they were around then,
human.
Yeah, so I mean, the shape of some of the things that they created things, was just very bizarre. And I mean, I'm sure there could be some things could be explained, but some of it isn't, and we just don't know. But it's
I think if you you visited a primitive race, and they saw you, and then you did something amazing, you might be like, how did you do that? You must be like the god, and then
yeah. It feels like if you brought a TV to some village where they'd never seen any technology before, they'd be like, what is this?
Powerful.
So, yeah.
You're a god. So
and this is exactly how we're seeing these things that are flying around. It's like we have no idea how these things are doing it and what they are. So we kind of have the same kind of thing. They're obviously looking at us thinking we're just some primitive, they could be so far advanced that we're just like little ants to them, and because, obviously the other thing is why haven't they sort of tried to interact with us? It's well, maybe they just see us as ants. Have you ever tried to interact with an ant on the side of the road?
I always thought they would be looking at us like a zoo or a science experiment
Possibly,
or something like that.
Experiment is the right word. There's definitely another another theory.
Potentially,
so.
were we dropped here to see what would happen?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and then they're just visiting just to see what we're doing because it's like Big Brother but on a planet scale.
Yeah, that's another theory as well. Like they reckon they possibly could have interfered with our evolution. So we could have gone down the same route as every other animal, like just, monkeys were monkeys and lions were lions, this and that. And we were just another form of primates or whatever. But somewhere along the line, they sort of interacted with us and sort of, did something to fuck with our DNA. And all of a sudden, we were able to evolve into something far more than all the other animals.
Yeah.
That's another speculation as well. Because you have to look at it. Of all the animals on the planet, we are the weird. Well, we don't fit in with all the other animals.
Yeah. And
why is that? Every other animal is just like they've got a certain ability where they can sort of do things, but then that's as far as they go. They can't get any further than that.
It's like we're the aliens?
Yeah. To them, we probably are.
And people are like, oh, but the chimps, I mean, yeah, we kind of...
So that's when you start thinking about the idea that these things are from this planet, they've always been here, then you kind of think, well, maybe we're the monkeys here. We actually are the monkeys. Do you know what I mean? So... like how monkeys look at us and how lions or cats or dogs or whatever look at us, we're now going to be looking in the same kind of view, but at these things because they're looking at us in the exact same way. You know what I mean? So it's wild speculation. Again, all speculation. But the thing is that all the speculation is derived from the fact these things are legitimately real.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question about it anymore. These things are actually real. And we're just trying to figure out what they are, where they're from, what they're doing, what's their intent. Because we're just past that point of, like, are they real? It's just we're past that point.
I really hope that, like, it gets to a stage where we find out.
I think so.
In our lifetime.
Stay tuned because something's going to be happening. I reckon this year. So, but we'll see how we go. And I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about a fair bit.
Yeah, and I think we have to come back to the subject again as we sort of learn a bit more and talk about a few key figures as well. I kind of feel like we didn't really talk about the Bob Lazar thing because I kind of feel that's a pretty amazing story as well.
Yeah.
But for anyone who does want to know more about that, look up his documentary and watch the Joe Rogan interview. It's just in my opinion, I think the interview with Joe Rogan is better than the documentary.
Yeah.
Because you kind of find some more details and gets really specific and it's a mind-blowing story. If it's true, of course.
Yeah.
If it's true. So, there you go.